Let me officially welcome you to our real estate investment club. Every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, we have a Zoom webinar. Originally, it started as a meetup group. It was going well. We were seeing each other on Wednesday, shake hands, sit down, chit chat, talk, go through the strategies, reviewing some neighborhoods that are coming up, etc. Now, I cannot say thanks to COVID-19, but this is the side effect of COVID-19. We decided to not meet each other face to face. So therefore, what's happened is I started going on Zoom. I was getting calls every week of people, what you're going to do, how we can conduct this one, we want to continue, etc. So since then, I started using Zoom for this gathering, for this webinar, and it was very beneficial. Now I'm thinking if one day you go back to what you used to, are we going to take it? I don't think so. I'm very comfortable with what I do. The good thing here, I can share things on the screen with audience. I can always invite people that, whether far away or close by, you can always come from the comfort of your house or your office. You can share tons of material and knowledge and wisdom with us. So that's worked very well. And many people, they don't want to drive for 20 minutes, half an hour. So that's also good for them to be with us as well. My name again, thank you for everybody to joining us today. My name again is Ashton Ekbatani. I'm doing real estate investment for last 15, 16 years. And I am working in GTA very much because of the nature of real estate investment. It means you should go after where the money is. I go all the way to Greater Toronto. My first real estate investment was in Kitchener-Waterloo. I do some of the investment in Keswick, which is the other side of Toronto on the north side. And I am a real estate agent. I got to the point that I had to see many homes, and my wife is a real estate agent. I got to the point that I had to see many homes that I said, you know what, let me not bother you anymore. Let me get my license, start looking for a house. And since then, I love real estate investment. What I like about it is you have the control of what you're doing. And of course, being a very conservative person, I had to go through a lot of training, a lot of educational materials, reading tons of books, talking to so many people. I don't want to buy a house that tomorrow, after 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I see I make no money. See, real estate investment, you have to make money. Otherwise, you're fooling yourself. So this real estate investment seminar that I have every week is coming out of my passion for real estate investment and helping others as well. I take pleasure of seeing people getting very successful. I have many clients, many friends that came to me, and I keep buying them good properties. Now, the reason for this real estate webinar here is, my goal here is to take you from wherever you are, let's say an average real estate investor, into a savvy investor. And that's the benefit that I can see coming out of this webinar. Means instead of being blown to the right and left by the media and the news, you create a strong role map for yourself. Now, quickly, before we get to Matthew's story, I want to review for a few minutes what's happening with the market, housing market right now. And I bring this one every single week, and we reviewed what the market has for you. Now, residential real estate market right now, the number of transactions compared to last year, we are minus 1.4. Now, seasonal trend since month of May to last month of June, the number of transactions went up 83%. That's why we have so many multiple offers. Now, looking at the average price, and that's where so many people's concerns are, despite of what everybody thought COVID-19 would crash the market, it didn't. Last year to this year, it went up 11.9%. This information, this data is taken from Toronto Real Estate Board, and I got it a few hours ago, so it's fresh. Now, seasonal adjustment here is from month of May to June, went up 9.8%. Okay, just give me one second. Anyone here, are you guys okay with the sound and the video?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, okay. So some learning and tools and material. Before last time I forgot to bring it up. I get a lot of calls asking for this information. So I'm going to share it a few minutes before Matthew goes on, just in case. This is one of the tools I always use. We call it Toronto Real Estate Home Price Index. Means it shows you what area is growing with one trend. What I'm looking at is 10 years growth usually, and that shows different neighborhood and what's happening in different neighborhood. For instance, why should I buy in Glen Williams in Halton Hill when 10 years growth is far from what I see in Palermo West in Oakville? Palermo West gives me 132% growth in 10 years compared to that area in Halton Hill. This is one of the tools I always use, is renewing every month. This is for you guys. I fill it up with all kind of information about real estate investment, techniques, strategies, pitfalls. This is the Facebook I have, and everybody's welcome to join us in there. There are news, there are information there that I can share with everybody. You're more than welcome to share your information. So this is a book, the most recent book I wrote, Successful Real Estate Investor. I have many other books that are Amazon.com. There are a lot of techniques that I put in those books. This is the real estate investment training that I have, and that helps you to start from wherever you are. If you are a newbie or average, move you to a savvy investor. There it would help you to, without falling into any real estate pitfalls, such as suppressing growing properties, hidden costs of the hidden costs of the properties that you buy, you don't know. They would give you techniques and strategy how to prevent that. Expensive mortgages, insurance surprises, tenants nightmare that you might have, and any kind of pitfalls, and also give you some strategy how to buy the most profitable and money-making properties. This is all in there. And voila, we have our special guest today, Mathew Frederick. We met each other almost close to 1 year, right, Mathew?
That's right.
And there I see I'm dealing with a man that has an ocean of information and knowledge. So I reached out to him a few weeks ago, and I said, Mathew, we're gonna have you here on the webinar. A lot of people come and they want to find out how you buy your properties. The topic I put for you is how you can buy properties with no money. And I've done many of those, but I wanted people to hear your story as well. So without further ado, here you go, Mathew, take over.
Okay, let's see if we can switch the control of the screen over to me.
Okay, let me try this.
We'll try that first. Okay.
So.
And are you seeing, hang on a sec. Are you seeing a PowerPoint opening up?
No, you may want to switch your screen as well.
Okay, so let's
I think
see.
you have to stop sharing, Ash, and then Matt can start sharing. You have to click the share screen button.
Lola, I need you all the time here. Okay, so stop sharing. Let me see. So you have to tell me where to find that key.
It's at the bottom. So look at the bottom screen. It will show the shared screen bottom.
Okay, I see that.
So you see participant, you see chat, and you see share screen.
Which part? Share screen?
So Matthew, sorry, can you click share screen on your bit?
Okay, I'm clicking share screen. It says host disabled participation share screen.
Well, there you go. So Ash, you're gonna have to go to your settings. Go to your settings in the Zoom, and then you can give your participants access to be able to share their screen.
Okay, multiple participants can share simultaneously. Okay,
exactly.
let's try that.
That's it. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm up.
Do you have your screen? Is that you? Okay, perfect. Everybody see him?
Yes, I can see.
Thank you. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll just spend about 2 minutes going through my history, my journey, Then I'll get into talking a bit about, multifamily, a bit about, or commercial real estate. Then some of the things that I do to understand what to buy, and at the same time, some of the things that I do to get finance from other people. So my journey, just really briefly, I started out as a soldier in the Canadian Armed Forces Reserve while I was going to school, which I really enjoyed it. I learned command and control, served my country, which I enjoyed. When I graduated, I went to Bank of Montreal. So I had this great job, could have been a 40-year career, but it just wasn't me. I was not a programmer. So I switched to IBM. I loved it because I was able to go out there in the real world and work. I switched to becoming a teacher at 24 and a half. And while I was teaching, I was also an entrepreneur, opening up a few businesses, Thai food restaurant. Now, I'm not Thai, I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. But Thai food back in 1998 sells very well in Hamilton. So I went that way, opening up a pool installation company and also a wellness clinic. But my brother approached me and said to me, you know what, you need to invest in real estate. I says, I already bought my first house at 19. I'm not buying anything else. And again, as I was telling Ash, he says, I'm a cop, I have a gun, I'm your older brother, you better start doing this. And I'm like, okay, amongst those odds, let me get into it. Because I was more of a systems person. So I was able to buy a series of houses, as you can see here. Let me jump past it. So I've done the buy and hold, the BRRRR, the rent to owns, the buy, fix and sell. I bought commercial property, gone through the whole process. Sometimes people make it seem easy. Like I've been investing and things have been really good. I've lost a lot of money. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had a lot of times where I didn't have someone to turn to, like you, Ash, to ask questions when I started out. And one of the biggest problems that I discovered, it was integrity. So a lot of people today think, you're 45 years old and you did something bad when you were 16. So you should not be in power today. But the truth is, I had great integrity when I was in high school. And if people think that because you have great integrity in high school, you're good to go for the rest of your life, that's the wrong thing. Because ultimately at every step of the way from residential to commercial to development, I had to create a new set of integrity to survive each level and a new ability to survive hard. So if you want to be a real estate investor, and some of you already are, but you want to go from levels to levels, and some of you already are, we just have to make sure that we develop that integrity to go with that level and that ability to survive hard and the ability to learn from a child's mind at each level. That's how I was able to go up through the ranks. I started buying in Florida in 1998 in Cape Coral. So this is what Cape Coral looks like from space. It looks like a microchip. And if you zoomed in, you'd have all these canals. And in the back of the canals, you have a house like this. And in the back of the house, all of a sudden, you have your canals and you have your lanai, then you have your canals over here. When the market collapsed in 2008, people ran away from the US. I ran to Arizona. I ran to Scottsdale. I picked up 3 properties at a pretty good price. And up until today, I rent these out to companies, their executive homes for their staff or their visiting, let's say, scientists. And I provide the chef, I provide the maid service, I provide the cleaning, which is maid service, I provide the lawn, the driver, I provide even a fitness person. Now, they're all local people, but I package it together and I sign 2-year leases with with the companies. So in a sense, I started out with residential, which was great. I went to commercial, then I started building subdivisions. So one of my first subdivisions, it was a 113 house subdivision. This is in Stony Plains, which is in Edmonton. And of course, I built the smaller 35 house subdivisions and even smaller ones as well, because here's the thing. And here's one quick lesson before we go into commercial. I did big with my partners first. Now, they had years of experience, but we did big together. The next step would be to do bigger. But I used wisdom that I learned in the military. When you go big, you don't do bigger next. You go back to small. You do small perfect, then you go back to bigger. So we did big. My partners wanted to go larger. I took a step back, because I was the one raising the money. So I forced them to go back to 35 house subdivision, where we learned how to work together better. We understood all the mistakes we made with the larger system. Now we did the 35 house subdivision. We did a series of smaller subdivisions until we got those perfect. And then we went back to bigger after. So quick lesson, do big, but then do small perfect, and then you can do bigger. And I've used that philosophy throughout all my investing. I built this 3-story, 23-unit condo building, and this is a 50-unit, 3-story condo building. I invest in Belize. In fact, when I invest in Belize, we have a brick factory. We make our own brick. So lesson number 2, when you're investing in commercial real estate, you want to control or have some sort of control over the major element. Now, even though in Belize we're building, why do I have the brick company? Because 10 years ago when we first started, halfway through our job, no one could find brick. They can't find cinder block. And when we're looking for cinder block, they would say, well, we'll help you find the cinder block. $15,000 will help you find that cinder block. And when you get to 95% complete, no more cinder block. So all of a sudden, in certain countries, they tend to come to you when you need them. They can't seem to find things, and you have to pay a little bit extra. So in Belize, we control the brick for our projects. Now, here in Canada, with commercial real estate, with buildings, one of my biggest expense would be the roof. So I have a lot of roofing companies that I help get business for them. So if I'm driving down the street and I see a bad roof, or I analyze a property and I see a bad roof, I then go to them, roofing companies, and I try to get them the job. So by me trying to get a roofing company a job, builds what's called favor. And that favor means whenever I have a roof problem, I go to that same company, and I've built up like a credit, almost like a commission, but not really a physical commission, more of a numbers commission. So I'm able to get probably 10 roof jobs for a roofer. So when my roof needs to be fixed, especially in commercial or anything larger, now I'm getting a discount because I've kind of given before I received. So second quick lesson. And of course, I've built in Belize, right? Okay, so having said that, let's get past my history. And Belize is great for its reasons. I won't go into this. I'll make sure this slide is available to you so that you're able to see that. Let me just get past this. Okay, so a lot of people say that commercial real estate is very expensive, so they don't really want to get into it. And I say to them, expensive is a perception. For instance, if somebody wants to make about $6,000 a month, let's say the average house, now this is not a Toronto house, but let's say the average house in the outskirts, maybe Brantford, is about $400,000. And let's say you had some cash flow. When all the expenses are taken care of, the mortgage is taken care of, your cash flow is $500. That would be good. Keep in mind that this house could be $800,000 in Mississauga. But if this were the case, all of a sudden, to get to $6,000 a month, which is an income that people would like to make as a foundational income. I mean, if I can show somebody to make $6,000 a month with their real estate, now their regular everyday job, everything they make from there is gravy. But to get to 6,000, the reality is it's 500 into 6,000 is 12 times. You'd have to literally get a $400,000 house times 12, $4.8 million to get to 6,000 a month, just on average. And that's 12 roofs, 12 locations, 12 furnaces, 12 properties to manage, and most likely you're managing them yourself. Real estate, buildings. A strip plaza for $2 million can generate $3,000 cash flow free and clear. And if you times that by 2, you get $6,000. So keep this in mind. 2 million, and this 2 million would be not in Toronto. This would be more in Hamilton, St. Catharines. It would be more in Bradford, just using these numbers here. Toronto numbers, the whole thing changes, right? But just to prove my point, a $2 million strip plaza that's producing $3,000 cash flow, you'll need 2 of them to get to $6,000, and that's $4 million. So when people say to me, larger properties more expensive, yeah, a plaza is $2 million and a house is $400,000. But if your goal is to get to $6,000 a month, then if you look at the big picture, it really takes 2 big buildings to get you to 6,000 as opposed to 12 houses. And these buildings are property managed for you, and they're what's called purpose-built, designed like a Jeep for multiple families. Whereas houses aren't really designed for multiple families. So just keep that in mind, that if you're going, you can do both. But some people are looking at the screen now and they're saying, well, I don't have $4.8 million. And others are saying, I don't have $4 million. Well, if you don't have 4.8 and you don't have 4, then what you have to do is literally figure out a way to get that money from partners. Now, you have a choice. If I can help you get partners to bring the down payment, the closing costs, and the mortgage, and you do all the heavy lifting, you bring the knowledge. If I can do that, then what would you rather do? All the houses or all the buildings? And don't forget, nothing stops you from doing both. So a lot of people will say to me, well, you know what, if I can get 2 buildings and they can be managed and it's 4 million, then I might go that way instead of 12 houses, 4.8 million to make 6,000. And don't forget, I've oversimplified this just to prove a point. Okay, so
Mathew,
next, go ahead.
just wanted to interrupt you for 1 second. This is for our audience. If Mathew is sharing you big dreams, big development he's done in the past, I don't want you to be afraid of the numbers, big numbers. What I like Mathew is doing is get your mind ready for bigger image, bigger picture, possibilities, and possibilities for you to go in there. You have to allow these things to go through your mind, understand that it's not as scary, it's not impossible, it's very much possible. So I want you to relax and just get into this this webinar as Mathew is sharing with you. Go ahead, Mathew.
This is a very important point you've made there, because when I was working with residential, once I mastered it and I switched to commercial, I remember thinking I waited till I was ready to get into commercial. But commercial requires so much more thinking that all of a sudden residential became very easy.
True.
And when I left commercial and started into building buildings, to make a building is so much more complicated than buying a building. All of a sudden, buying a building was very easy. So if I were to do it all over again, when I was doing residential, I would stay 80% of my time in residential, but 20% of my time, I would still be looking at some of the bigger things, like these bigger numbers. Even though I'm not in it, you have to look at it, because you'll discover that if you're spending 20% of your time at the next level, it actually makes your level a lot easier and gets you through faster. And when I was doing commercial, I should have been doing development, so that all of a sudden it forced my mind to be better. It's like me taking you from grade 10, putting you into the NBA basketball, you're going to be terrible. But when you come back to grade 10, you're going to be amazing. So always work at a step higher for 20% than where you are in order to do what you're doing a lot better. So that's a really good point that you mentioned there, Ash. Obviously, coaches can help you get to this point as well. Now, people talk about types of real estate. What do I like? What do I don't? I'll just spend a second on this. Multifamily is always a good buy. Obviously, in a pandemic, it's a bit more difficult because some people cannot pay their rent. I find that the strip plaza makes me the most money because these tenants tend to pay the most rent and they cover most of the expenses. At the same time, when a store goes empty, it takes a long time to actually fill it up. Office buildings, I've never been able to get my full money out of them. So I've owned office buildings. It's always 85% complete. I've never been able to fill it up all the way. As soon as you put somebody in, somebody else comes out. That's been my experience. And then warehousing is a whole business in itself. You're managing a big floor. So if you guys are looking to do something, either you're doing houses, but if you go into the commercial realm, you want to start with multifamily or with strip plaza. Those are the easier ones to go with. And the 3 things you have to ask yourself is simply this. Where am I, number 1, do I want market survivability? Is that important for me? In an up and down market, exactly, where is that ranked? Or sometimes people just want a lot of cash flow and they want a lot of appreciation. That's the second ranking. And the third ranking is maybe you want low maintenance and low operation costs. So these are the 3 indicators that you use when you're buying property outside of a 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 unit. What's more important to me? Now, for a lot of people, market survivability is number 1. Number 2 is getting good income. And number 3 is low maintenance. And how do you apply this to property? Well, multifamily does have market survivability. Up and down market, it works really well still. Cash flow is middle. And maintenance is more maintenance. That's why it's third, because you have a lot of families using that property. Whereas a strip plaza, the income is high. The maintenance is very low because the tenants pay for that maintenance. And survivability is not as high because if a store goes empty, you're going to be in trouble. The best of both worlds is really if a multifamily and a strip plaza had a kid, it's mixed use. Now, obviously, in a pandemic world, it's really hard on stores. But if you were to get into any kind of multifamily, you might want to get into some stores and a couple levels of apartments so you have best of both worlds. High income with the stores, high survivability and reliability with the apartments. Okay, so that might be a thing to look at, because I've made most of my money with the mixed use. And my mixed use buildings generate more than my multifamilies and also my strip plazas. Now, people always say, well, you know, should I get into even commercial real estate? I always use an RIP system. So recession, internet, pandemic proof. So if you have restaurants and clothing stores and gyms and events places and travel places and hospitality businesses, they could suffer. But if you're in a recession proof, if you have variety stores, you know, all repair stores, pizza, law, lawyers, accountants, medical, rehab places, they tend to work well in recession. The internet, meaning these kind of businesses in your locations can't be replicated outside of the country as easily. And of course, in a pandemic, these things work very well. And I just say this to you very briefly, that if you get into any kind of multifamily building, what type of tenants do you put into your multifamily? Tenants who work in recession-proof, internet-proof, and pandemic-proof businesses, so they can actually pay their rent. And if you get into plazas, what kind of stores do you want in your plazas? You want to get recession-proof, internet-proof, and pandemic-proof stores that tend to work in up or down times. It seems like every 3 years, we're getting some kind of weird thing, from, you know, Ebola to SARS to H1N1 to Zika to COVID. Every few years, there'll be something interesting. So we have to prepare ourselves with our tenants, whether it's a house tenant, a building tenant, or even if it's a store tenant, they have to be able to be in these three areas, the RIP area. So in a sense, you kind of rest in peace, right? Now, so why are people afraid of getting out there and buying larger property? Well, lack of knowledge and experience. They have a hard time finding it, hard time analyzing it, hard time negotiating. They don't know the due diligence, how to finance it, how to repair it, and how to manage it. This is what your mentor, your coach is there for. So Ash, myself, or whoever else is in your circle who's been doing it for a lot of years, they can work with you to do that. But of all these things, the hardest thing to do is negotiate. So you want to really learn how to negotiate, because that's a more universal ability. That works at any type of strategy, any type of level. The next thing is how to finance the property. I was able to buy 3 houses with my own dime. And then all of a sudden, I was locked up. I couldn't buy anything else. I was able to find somebody who had a portfolio of 10 houses, and they were retiring, so they actually held the mortgage for me. So I got to 13 houses. But from that point forward, I couldn't buy anything else. So I had to find partners and learn how to convince them to come on board, help me with the financing in order to do something together. I mean, I could have stayed at 3 properties. The fact that I found 10 and I joined ventures and I got them to help me finance it, like, that was fortunate. But putting that aside, if I didn't do that, I would have been stuck at 3 properties. A lot of investors get to 3 properties and they hit the wall. They can't go any further. What gets them further is finding joint venture partners. And then you have to, well, find them and then move them to action. And then they have to have, but what you have to have is some money to lock that deposit down, to secure a property, find your down payment, your mortgage money, your closing costs, your upgrade, and managing money. So all this for me comes from my partners. In the beginning, it was out of my pocket. When I ran out of money, I had to learn to get this from other people. And that's an interesting process in itself. So you can always get that through chapters and YouTube. And obviously you can call Ash, you can call myself, or whoever is in your circle who has a few years on you that can coach you or be there with you, okay? Now, when it comes to the structure of a joint venture, which we call a co-venture, obviously we have an expert investor, brings the experience, the management, and the time. We have a property holder who brings a down payment, mortgage, and closing. Nothing stops each person from bringing money to the table. But keep in mind that this person will be working for 5 years to make this building a top-notch opportunity. So generally, I co-venture with people, and I'll show you in a minute how I speak to them, but I co-venture with them in order to share the cash flow, the mortgage pay down, and the appreciation. Now, I share things 50-50. It's very hard for someone to say, well, if somebody gives all the money, Why would they give you 50% of the cash flow, the mortgage pay down, and the appreciation? I'll explain that in a second. But this is the structure of a co-venture. Now, when it comes to co-ventures, you have to remember something. It's always better to talk to people who are wealthier than yourself. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Just to give you a taste of it, because this is only a webinar, a lot of people, when they go to a wealthier person who has money to invest, they'll say, here's a great return. By the way, it's in a great location. By the way, I have great experience. And here's a great exit strategy. So when somebody comes to me and says, here's an opportunity I want you to invest in, and they tell me these 4 things, I do not invest with them. Now, today, because I'm investing for 28, 29 years, and obviously I've built a lot of stuff, I have the money, and having the money changes your mindset. This does not turn me on. You tell me these 4 things, I'll say go away. Because when you have money, let's to understand the mindset of a wealthy investor, when you have money, your concern are not these things up front. You need to tell me about liability protection. If I get involved with you in this project, whether it's a building, a house, or a large build, how are you protecting me liability-wise so I don't get sued? Number 1. Then you tell me, how am I going to save on my taxes? How is it tax smart to invest with you in this house, building, or development? Number 3, what are the different places I can jump out? I want to know I can get out at certain spots along the way. Doesn't mean I'm going to get out, but I want to know where I can jump out. Like when you're in a plane, they tell you the exits are this way and that way and that way. That's only good on the runway. But you need those exits to get off the ground. You know, at 50,000 feet, you can't take an exit. Make sense? But at least people need to know what are the exit strategies. Where can I get out? And then I need to know the systems. What systems do you have in place in order to, if anything happens to you, that I'm able to see this project through? And how are you going to manage it? You take care of all that, and now you've earned the right to talk to me about my return on investment, the location of the property, the experience you have, and the exit strategy. So just keep in mind that when you're talking to people who have perhaps lots more money than you, not because they're better than you, they're just in a different stage of life, and you're looking to tap into their dollars to end up buying something with them where they finance it and you come in as a partner, you protect them 1 to 5 first, and then you've earned the right to go 6 to 9. Start up from 1 to 4, you'll only get to people who are middle income people. Anybody above that, rich people hate losing their money. It's hard to fall from a 10-foot building than it is to fall from a 2-foot building. And if you're a new investor and you're on the 2nd floor, you're telling a guy on the 10th floor, come invest with me. He needs to know, or she needs to know, all these things are locked in, okay? Now, this is the best example of a joint venture, because a lot of people don't understand how I can get 50% of everything when the other person puts a lot of money in. So this is a joint venture here. 1 person, 3 minutes. 1 person, 9 months. But that kid is a 50-50, isn't it? Make sense? This one here who brings the down payment, the closing cost, the deposit money, this person is not the one who's carrying the baby. Every time I work with a joint venture partner, and it's a 5-year relationship, I feel as though I've carried a baby for 5 years because I've had to find the property. I've had to do it right in order to have room for appreciation and for cash flow. I've had to analyze it. I've had to view it. I've had to go through all the inspection and appraisal, go through all the due diligence. When the property is purchased, I have to be the one, I'm the one who is making sure that expenses are low and revenues are high and the property has a good theme. I'm the one who's looking over the upgrade of that property and looking over the people who are repairing it. I'm the one who's looking over the property manager. So I'm doing all this, I'm carrying the baby for 50% of what they have done. Cash down, mortgage, and closing. And by the way, they get to do their job. They have their jobs full time. I'm doing my job, plus I'm doing this. So when it's explained a certain way, and I've gone through this very quickly, this is how you feel when you are the partner who is pulling all the weight. And you know, it's not equal, is it? Okay? Now, how do you explain to somebody that all of a sudden they're putting the money in, but you're pretty much gonna get 50% of everything? The moment you tell somebody that, they believe the money, so they're the venturer, they believe the money is 80% of everything. And everything you have to bring to the table, all of this is only worth 20%. That's natural. So you go with that. But then you have to move them to 60-40. And then you have to move them to 50-50. In fact, I also moved it to the point where I'm 60 and they're 40. So how do you move them? You cannot talk a person into believing that the money, that what you're offering is not as much as the money. You have to behave them into it. And you behave them into it with systems. So here's a quick question. Who's going to win a race? Now, I heard this on the radio about a month ago, but I first heard this 10 years ago. Who's going to win a race, a 10-year-old girl or last year's Tour de France winner? Well, if he's got a tricycle and she's got a bicycle, she'll beat him. So I have to show my JV partners for them to bring that money in. So there's no money out of my pocket, but money out of their pockets, because there's no money down deal. It's less money out of your pocket, more money out of their pocket, but you're doing something important and they're doing something important. Well, if you have great systems, because a bicycle will always beat a tricycle, then that's how the person decides to, okay, I'll move from them believing that the money is 80% and your knowledge is 20% to 60 to 40. It's done this way, by slowly going through with them, spending 3 or 4 hours on how you analyze a property in the field. I take them out, I show them property. I walk the street with them, take off my shoes, I walk in the grass. After a few hours of that, we may have a meal. The next time I show them how to analyze properties. I'll sit down with them and spend time analyzing properties with them. So I'm behaving with them, showing them a system for 3 or 4 hours so they understand that I know how to analyze a property correctly. Next time I meet with them, I might go through lots of different purchase agreements, samples, clauses to show them how I protect them. I may spend some time going through some due diligence with them. What if I spent 3 hours every single time I met this person? One time, 3 hours, 3 hours, 3. You can spend 27 to 30 hours with somebody. Every time you may have a meal. Every time you break bread. But what you're doing is you're showing them your system for everything. And as you show them this, that 80-20 all of a sudden becomes, 30-70. And when you show them this, it keeps slowly shifting. You cannot convince a person to be a partner. You have to behave them into being your partner. Okay? Very, very important. So once I've gone through that process, then they have a good understanding of my system. They have that relationship, and now they're more confident to move forward and actually add money to the table. Ash, how much time do we have?
I think we are getting you're having another 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, so I just want to show you guys something quickly. Now, people always say, what are the numbers that I use to analyze a property in order to convince someone to actually invest with me? Obviously, I want to know the net operating income, and that is the money coming in minus the expense. Something called the cap rate, something called the cash flow, something called the cost per unit, and cash on cash. Let me just spend a couple of minutes on this section right here. So just really quickly, net operating income is revenue minus expense, no mortgage. So the revenue is 109, property, taxes, maintenance, insurance, TMI. I've added it up. Altogether, it's 42,000. So the net operating income is 67,844. Why is that important to me? That's important because it helps me to determine the value of a property. How so? Well, I want to figure out this concept of cap rate. Now, an area has a cap rate number, and a property has a cap rate. I have to compare the area's cap rate to the property cap rate to see if they match up. So how do you figure out an area cap rate? You go to a realtor and you get some history. This building sold for $850. Its NOI was 68. NOI divided by sold is 8%. Next building, 920, 65 NOI. NOI divided by sold is 7%. Next building, this is history over the last year or two, sold for 820. NOI is 70K. Remember, revenue minus expense. The NOI is 8.5. Then I'll add 3 together, this one to this one to this one, add all 3, divide by 3 to get the average. So the area's cap rate is 7.8%. Now, this is not an exact science, but let's just say it's about 8%. So now I know what the area's cap rate is. Now I'm about to buy a building. I'm trying to figure out, am I buying a building at a good price? Well, what I do is I take the building's net operating income, because you're selling me a building now, so what's the NOI? And then I take the area's cap rate and I divide it. And once you divide NOI by area cap rate, it spits out a price at you. Technically, this property should be 848,050. Doesn't mean that's what you'll get, but that's a starting point so you can understand that, which is, I think, very important. So why do we need to know the area cap rate? In order to compare the area cap rate to the property we're looking to buy, its performance of NOI, the area cap rate, I know it's about 848 to start. Now I'm going to show you what a commercial realtor does. A commercial investor does. So the area is 7% cap rate. Some guy's trying to sell me a building for $1 million. His NOI is 60. When I divide it, I get 6. Well, 6 is below 7. I don't want to pay $1 million. If it was 850 divided by 60, it's 7. So if it's equal to the area cap rate, or if it's higher than the area cap rate, I'm okay with this price. Hey, doesn't mean you're going to get it, but I'm just saying that's a starting point, okay? And now I'll just show you what my job is and how I can convince a JV partner that I'm going to bring a benefit to them. So right here, the area has a cap rate of 7%. Somebody is looking for a building to sell it for $1 million. I don't want to buy it for $1 million. I want to buy it for 850. Why is that? Because 60 is the NOI. Divided that into that, it's 7. I'm buying 7 area, 7 building. So technically, in the best world scenario, I just saved my partner $150,000 in the best world scenario. So that's my value. Now, if the property is worth 850, and then I increase the revenue, I reduce the expense, increase the revenue by adding lockers, parking, pop machines, signs on the side of the building, better rents, and then reduce the expenses, heat, hydro, water, whatever, then all of a sudden the NOI is 80. Well, you know what? You remember how 60 into 850 is 7%? Well, 80 into 850 is now, if I go 80,000 divided by 7%, the area's cap rate, my new value goes from 850 to 1143000. Because remember, how do we determine the price? How do we get 850? 60 divided by 7 to give us 850. 7 divided by 80 to give us 1143. So that's my job over the next 2 years. Increase the revenue, reduce the expense. And then, of course, a few years later, even if I were to not even improve anything, but I can convince someone to buy it at a 6% cap in a 7% area, well, 6% on 80,000 is 1.3300 million. So I know I've gone through pretty quickly here, but what I've done is I've taken a property from 850 up to 1.33. All you have to remember is that it's possible. And you can speak to Ash or myself to get more details on how that's done, okay? So what have I brought to the table? Just in closing, I've saved $150,000 off the top, buying at the right price. The first jump was $293, second jump was $190. Combined together on $1 million building, I've brought a value of $633. And when they bought it, the $1 million building, they put 35% down. So they put down $350 plus a mortgage. But over the next 5 years, I bring a certain amount of value to the table. And that's just one indicator of how I can show them that I'm bringing value. Because a property manager is not going to work very hard to bring down the expenses. They don't have to. They get paid on the revenue. Property manager gets paid a percentage of the revenue, okay? Whereas an investor, I don't get paid unless there is a cash flow, which means I have to reduce the expenses, and it has to be efficient because I'm getting a portion of the cash flow, and I'm only getting paid if there's an appreciation. If I partner with you and there's no cash flow for 5 years, I don't get paid. And if there's no appreciation for 5 years, I don't get anything at the end. I have a vested interest, just like you. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a look at, I'm just gonna jump past all this quickly. It gives you a bit of a look. And of course, location is very important, right? If I have something here, a plaza, and I have a plaza here, they're identical. Obviously, if these are neighborhoods, everybody will go to this neighborhood. If it was over here, the reds won't. I mean, who would leave this neighborhood to go to this plaza here? Okay, but how can I force them to come here? It's very simple. If this were medical retail, which means a pharmacy, physiotherapy, doctor, dentist, people who are in pain, they cross the street to get to the other side. So when people tell you you can't make money in plazas and you lose money in them, it's when you have the wrong mix of things. because with medical retail, people leave where they live and they will cross the road to get to medical retail. They will not cross the road for convenience, variety, restaurant, clothing store, computer store. So it's all about location and what you're offering. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of a taste of some of the thoughts that you want to bring together when it comes to commercial. And of course, we can always answer questions or jump into more details on how this stuff works along the way. Now, I'm going to go stop share, which will give you back the screen.
Okay. No. Lola, are you there? You have to tell me how to take it back.
I think you have it. Have it back.
You should have it back.
You do?
Yeah, you do.
Okay. Now let me see if I.
Are we allowed to ask questions now?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Just ready for that. Okay. You just give me 1 second. I'm gonna bring up the chat just in case. Yeah, go ahead with your question, Lola, or anyone else.
Okay, so Matthew, I really enjoyed that session. The question I had, however, was how do you qualify for a mortgage? Because I know, like, my broker was telling me, for instance, if I was supposed to get like a triplex, I'm still on the residential part. But when I move over to like the fourplex and the rest of them, then I go commercial. Then it becomes a little bit more like difficult to get a mortgage. So how do you get a mortgage with a lender, for instance? And then how do you get a mortgage with an A lender?
So are you saying, okay, so are you saying, okay, so let's create a scenario. Somebody's working in a not so great job and they're making not so great money. They don't have a whole lot of down payment and they want to get a mortgage for commercial real estate. That's A. Or are you saying all that plus they want a partner?
No, I'm saying, okay, I'm giving myself an instance right now, right? Yeah. So I'm working in a very good job, getting paid a lot of money. And I also own a home and I've invested in 2 other properties. But what I was trying to do was get into like a bigger complex. So like get a fourplex, for instance. But my broker was saying that I might not qualify for a fourplex because I already have $2.2 million in real estate.
Okay, so the answer is simply this. Number 1, you can't qualify. You have to do something else, which I'll show you in a second. Or number 2, you may be able to have the owner hold a secondary mortgage. In other words, they may provide some of the financing. And number 3, you may be able to get some private money to help you buy the property, fix it up, and if it goes up in value, you can pay that private money back and get yourself a regular mortgage. So number 3, again, is to get harder money, which will cost more, to allow you to buy something if it's empty or if there are no tenants in it, or if you can fix it up to value, refinance it after 1 year, and then get a regular bank finance. Because once the bank sees that the property is doing good and it's a much higher value, you might get a regular mortgage that you couldn't qualify before. Number 2 was you can literally have somebody maybe hold the mortgage, the owner, for a period of time. But number 1 is you have to find somebody who has the money to partner with you, because they go on title and they're on the mortgage. But because you have a joint venture agreement, that agreement shares the property with you. So it's their property, they're on title, but the agreement on the contract law states that you can share the cash flow, and when it appreciates, it goes up in value a few years later, you sell it, and now you have some more down payment money to put down. So there is no very quick fix to, if someone doesn't have the money and they can't qualify, you really have to work with somebody else who does, and then share that with them. And again, I wish I had more time to lay it out for you. Because here's the bottom line. You know, if you can't buy an extra property right now, as soon as you buy this one, then you visit the same problem again. You're out of money to buy a property. And if you were to get the next one, you visit the problem again. You're out of money again to buy the next property. So your solution is to spend your time finding high net worth people who don't have the time to invest, but have the money to invest, but you have the ability, the knowledge, know-how, and the time to come together. That's how you become successful in real estate investing. That's how I was able to break past 3 properties. So, you know, if they say you can't get financed, you can't get financed. So your solution is to get somebody else who can, and I can show you how to do that, and have that person come on board with you. share it with them. Now, if you can do it with one person, you can do it with three because it's not your money. If you can find one person to partner with you to get you that property you want and share the results, then you could do the second, third, fourth, and fifth person. Now you share 5 houses and 5 cash flows, 5 appreciations, and then it gets you the money you need to now be strong, but it might take you 2 years to be strong. I know it's a big long answer, but does that sort of make sense?
Adding to what you said, Matthew, in response to what Lola said, this is, I think, you covered on the second point. We call it VTB, vendor take back. What you do, I've seen older people, they don't want to go through the hassle of managing those kind of challenges with real estate investment. So you are volunteering. You said, Mr. Seller, I know you don't want to go through the headache, but let's go VTB, means, let's say, for the sake of arguing here, I'm qualified for $500,000. Now I know you're asking for 800 or 1 million. Why don't I take over? I'm qualified for $500,000. You give me what we call a second mortgage in a way. And then for next 2 years, you set an agreement that every month you pay this older guy a portion of whatever your arrangement is. So at the same time, you have your first mortgage and you get a private mortgage with this individual. With that 2 years, you can spend time improving the place. You can bring income. And 2 years, if the location of the property is good, you also have the benefit of the growing value of the property. So that's what I did in the past, and that was very successful.
Yeah, and I've done that too. But putting all the real estate aside, to be successful in real estate, you have to have the art of finding a property that's not on the market and convincing them to sell it.
Yeah.
And the art of getting somebody who has money, maybe a doctor, and wants to put that money into a property. Now, by getting those two things, that skill set, that's how you become wealthy in real estate.
True.
Because to find off-market deals, whether it's a house or a building, talk to people who don't have a property for sale and convince them to sell it, and have people who have money who can invest it. You bring them together. That's how I was able to build my buildings. My buildings are $35 million. I'm a young black man from, Ontario. I didn't have anything.
How did you get the down payment for it, right? That's another question.
It's not your down payment. You have to get a partner to bring that down payment in. Now, if you're doing a VTB, then you have to bring something to the table. There is no such thing as no money down. Somebody has to put money down.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I know that bit. I'm just thinking, how do I locate that person, right? That's always been the question, because you hear the zero down. But how do you locate the person that's willing to put their money down?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. It's very simple. The people who have money own buildings, and those buildings are managed by property managers. I just go into the phone book and I find property managers, or I go onto the web, I find property managers. I pick a building that they manage. But I call that manager about that building. I say, I have an important document for the owner of that building. Can you send a document through you, property manager, to get to the owner? They say, what's the important document? I go, it's an offer to buy. They say the owner may not want to sell. That's okay. Send them the letter anyway. When that person gets a letter, they may want to sell or they may want to keep buying, but in some cases, they don't have the time to keep buying. Now you come along with your energy and your expertise and your desire to do something, and you may be the one who helps them find that next property and be the partner along the way. So I found most of my down payment from people who already own buildings, who are not looking to sell, but maybe looking to buy, or have money tied up, and they just want to take that money and put it somewhere. Or you can do the traditional way, going through banks and going through mortgage brokers and all these other things. But it's just how to do that. I don't have the time to show you right now, but if you want to talk about it, I'll walk you through the steps, because I get most of my money. Like my first deal I got from a plastic surgeon. I booked a meeting to get a liposuction. I didn't need one, but I still spent the $150 to go for the little meeting. 4 weeks later, I was in there. He's looking at me, talking to me. Now I'm sitting right in front of a plastic surgeon, and I'm telling him what I do. I convinced him that maybe it's worth having a tea. We had a tea, and he became my down payment guy and my mortgage money guy for my first building. So I know I'm going fast, but I'm just saying there's lots of ways to get to people who have access to money to use their money, as opposed to just thinking, how do I get my own down payment money? because your money will run out very quickly after your first, second, or third property. You know, but we can talk one-on-one on that if you want.
Okay, yeah, that'll be great. Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else have any question? I don't get any question. What I often see is, like, I'm dealing with investors every week. I talk to them, sitting hours, talking, answering their questions. One of the first things I see in their face, scary face I see, they are getting into something that is totally unknown, and they have a huge fear of losing because they don't know the territory they are stepping in, and the fear of unknown that is ahead of them. So it's very important that you learn more about real estate investment. You learn from a coach, a trainer, someone that went through all this way. Maybe you went through some mistakes, pitfalls here and there, that at least once you walk with that teacher, instructor, you're not falling into the same pitfalls. And I see that every single day with newbies. They try to learn on their own. They can learn, but they pay the huge price for their education. And that's very important as a new real estate agent, a new real estate person, investors, to walk into the path that is paved for you, and you hold hand of someone that went through that path as well.
No, it's true. And it's having somebody walking with you, even one-on-one. Like, I mean, when I work with people, I go out with them and we actually talk to doctors or dentists. We talk to building owners together. They watch me talk. And first I'm talking, then they're talking also, then they're talking and I'm watching. So it's very important to be with people who are doing what you want to do. And, you know, a coach or a mentor, but someone who's there for you, because there's a lot of shortcuts that took them a long cut to get there. Every shortcut I teach was a long cut for me. You know, the first environmental problem I ran into cost me $280,000 to clean up. Something that happened 50 years before I was born. But when I'm working with people, they're not going to go through that same mistake. So every shortcut, somebody had to go through a long cut. So make sure you find a teacher or mentor that will walk you through that process so you can take the shortcut.
One of the property I bought for my investor, she found a house, beautiful house, everything perfect. Like the numbers were showing great return. And then what I did, one of the due diligence that I do with my investors is dig into the history of the house. Make sure there is nothing that would suppress the growth of the value of that property. Long story short, we find out there was a fight inside the house. The husband killed the wife, came out, got engaged with police. So that was all over in the news. And I told my investors, the day you want to sell it, people are investigating. They don't want to go live in that kind of house. So that automatically eliminates buyers, potential buyers that are willing to pay you good money, let's say 2 years down the road, from not coming and buying that property from you. So there are a lot of things that would eventually suppress the value of your house. And that's very important. The day you want to buy a property, you always think, is there anything that would suppress the growth of this property? If yes, stay away from it. Go find another one. After all, you are there to make money.
And that's perfect. And another thing too is just systems. Like people say to me, what's one method that I find properties that are ready to go to market? How could I be in 1,000 places at once? Well, I can't. So I find somebody who is. Every time I see a UPS driver, they're stopped. I talk to them. Hey, here's a card. This is a $20 card. It's a coffee card. It's a Walmart card. You can buy yourself a chicken at the end of work. You know, whatever it is to them, it is to them. But I say to them, ultimately, if you can help me, every time you spot 5 properties that are distressed, and what is distress? Long grass, broken windows, eaves trough down. You went to a store to drop off a package and it was terrible. Whatever they see up and close, then they can report back to you. I'm not changing their behavior. UPS drivers are like ants. They're everywhere. And at one point, I had 27 UPS drivers who were looking for stuff for me. And ultimately, all I did was give them a coffee card because that's all they need. They want coffee. I want property. Okay, coffee keeps them warm. Coffee they're addicted to. You know, I'm not a drug dealer. I'm a coffee dealer, I guess. You know, but the fact is, I keep them in coffee. So now they find 5 deals or 5 potential properties. They tell me, I fire them off a card. either a movie card, a Walmart card, or a coffee card. And ultimately, I just go and knock on those doors and talk to those people. So I'm just saying there are systems you can create in order to multiply yourself. Remember how I said a bicycle is better than a tricycle? Well, I do the exact same thing for everything else. Raising money, getting down payment, getting partners. I have probably 300 systems. And those systems took years to develop. But once your mentor passes those systems to you, shows you how to use them, you'll get there much faster.
Absolutely. It's forming a team. I always tell people there are three things you need to do. Is first of all, your intention, your desire. You have to have the desire to get into real estate investment. Number two is your team. Whether you're dealing with a lawyer, you're dealing with a real estate agent, you're dealing with even a home inspector or mortgage broker, make sure they've done something with real estate investment professionally. And number three, what you need is action. So many people is talking about it, reading about it, they never take action. You will be successful when you start taking action. These three components are always there and they are very important. Matthew, go ahead, add one.
Oh yeah, it's very true. How I learned to build, I couldn't find anybody to teach me to build in Ontario. So I found a company in Alberta and I called them and I said to them, I noticed you guys have the same few guys who keep funding you because I pulled title on all your projects. It's the same guys who give you the initial money. It's on title. Let me come out there and show you guys how to raise money from everybody else. They said, don't come out. And that was a Wednesday. By the following Monday, I jumped on a plane. I flew to Alberta, to Edmonton, and I showed up. And I said, I've just flown 3,500 kilometers across the country to see you, and I will have an hour of your time. And they're like, you flew across the country to see us, even though we said, don't come? I says, exactly, because fortune favors the bold. 3 hours later, they bought into my system. Today, I'm a 25% owner of that company. But I was willing to do what I had to do to meet the right people in order to get what I needed to get done. And people say, how do you do that? Well, just pretend someone you love is in need. You'll break down a door. You'll fly across the country if you have to. And someone isn't in need. Therefore, my real estate has to be able to help my family, to help the world I live in. So you have to bring an intensity like that, but you got to be brilliant. Systems, okay? Because hard work will not make you rich. Smarts won't make you rich. The combination of hard work and smarts with wisdom from your mentor or coach or the person who's gone before you, that makes you wealthy. And that solves some of those problems for you.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Any last word for us, Matthew?
No, that's it. You know what? A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to learn. And I call them bookaboos. They just read every book in the world.
Yes.
I tend to read maybe 5 books a year, but every time I read a book, I take about 7 things from it in January. Then I spend my February incorporating those 7 things into my life. And by March, I make those a habit. Then I read my next book. So I'd rather read 5 books and get 7 things from each book, 35 things that I'm living that is a behavior. They're reading 1,000 books and saying, I'm smart. You got to live what you read. You got to read it, absorb it, and behave it. And if you just read 3 books a year, but you behave 21 things, you'd be more successful than if you read 50 books, which are good books, but you can't tell me anything about it. So generally, that's just something to keep in mind.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matthew, for coming. Anyone wants to call and contact me, my phone number is on the screen. It's 647-474-4049. Also, I'm going to bring up Matthew's phone number. Anyone wants to reach him or talk to him, 289-440-2335. Is that the right number, Matthew?
That's it. Just call me and I'll fill in some of the details that I missed out today.
Excellent. And you feel free to give me a call or send me an email. We are always here to help you guys. And it was great to have all of you with us, and see you next week. And Matthew, I'm planning to bring you back here again for another great topic, your sea of wisdom.
And thank you for inviting me. I really enjoy you. I enjoy your philosophies, and your books are amazing. So you know what? I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.